name is Kelly Dale, and this is your Must Know Monday. Today, I want to teach you all about loops, how to make a wrapped loop, how to make a plain loop, and then how to take those two techniques and make a beautiful chain tasseled necklace. So, basically, to make a loop, you're going to need a round nose plier, a flat nose plier, and a pair of cutters. And I'm going to tell you more about the pliers and some things about the pliers as we get into the video. You're also going to need some head pins or some scrap wire that you can play with. And I'm going to also explain that to you. So go ahead and just kind of get some of these materials together, and then we'll show you how to make some loops. So the first thing you need to know about making loops is about head pins, eye pins, and things such as that. There's all sorts of really fun different head pins, eye pins that you can use. The first is a very basic head pin. It's called a head pin because it has a flat head on the bottom that looks like a nail. These head pins come in different gauges. We carry two different kinds at our shop. We carry a thick, which I call this one, and we carry a thin, which is just a thinner gauge. It's really easy to make a wrap with. And so this is a standard 2-inch head pin. Head pins come in different sizes, colors, and shapes. This is a 3-inch head pin. Again, it has the flat head on the top, and it's the same thing as this, just a longer version. These here are also head pins. They're just a really fun spiral at the bottom of it, so it's just fun and different to work with. So head pins, all shapes and sizes. The other thing you need to know is there's a product called an eye pin. It's called an eye pin because if you hold it this way, it can look like the letter I, or it just has an eye at the bottom of it, a little open circle. It's just a plain little loop. These are great for connecting things together. So I want to show you how to make some basic loops. On these earrings that I want to teach you to do today, I'm actually going to have it to where this is the top of my earring and this is the bottom. And you'll see how they come together. I've got some rather large, they're about the size of a quarter, these really pretty crystal squares. So I'm going to thread one of those onto my eye pin or my head pin. Now, the other thing you need to be aware of and you need to think about when you're making an earring is the way you want the loop to be. So, on the earring, do you want your loop to be straight in front of you like this so you can see the eye, or do you want the eye to be like this where you can't see it? If you want to be the eye where you cannot see it, I'm going to bend this wire straight back. As it is for this earring, I want to be able to see the eye of my pin. So, I'm going to use my round nose pliers. The thing that you need to notice about round nose pliers is that they are skinny here at the front, and then as you go to the back, they get bigger. What this means is if you hold a pin here near the front of your pliers, you're going to get a small loop. The further back you hold it on the pliers, the bigger the loop you're going to get. Always use your skinny part of your pliers. You want to grab a hold right above the bead. And so basically your pliers are touching the bead. And remember, I want to be able to see the eye of my bead or my loop. So I'm going to turn this straight out to a 90-degree angle. And when I turn it straight out like this, I'm bending at the plier. I'm not grabbing a hold of the top and bending because you want a nice straight arch like this. Now I don't want to cut off any excess, and I want a little bit of a bigger loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in about halfway to 3/4 of the way back on my pliers, as you can see here. Alright, and when I turn it to the side, I can't feel any excess coming off the back of the pliers. So I'm going to take and I'm going to roll this back around to make my loop. Now my loop's not completely closed yet, and I did that for a purpose, because I want to dangle something off the bottom of my loop. I'm going to use these really pretty marquee looking crystals. I'm going to use a plain jump ring. A jump ring is one circle that has one cut in it. And the biggest thing I see people doing is opening a jump ring the wrong way. Here is the correct method for opening a jump ring. You're going to need 2 pliers. You want to grab a hold of each side of the jump ring and you want to twist. Then you can thread on whatever it is you want to thread on, grab a hold of each side, and then twist back the same way that you open them. And I'm going to try and get it to where you can see it here. And if it's not completely closed, you can take your flat nose pliers and grab a hold of it like, and grab a hold of it like this and see that it's now closed. So I'm going to take and I'm going to thread that onto the bead or my loop that I just made. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that loop is closed. So that now I have this for my earring. And then all I have to do, I can either open up the loop on my ear hook, or these spirals are fun because you can pretty much take and just spiral them onto the earring. You can get it through, there we go. You can spiral it onto the earring and not even have to open it, so that you have a very simple and elegant earring. I wear these earrings a lot. I made me a pair a couple of weeks ago and people love these earrings. They're just very simple. So again, a plain loop. Plain loop, I'm just going to put the bead on the head pin. You want to grab a hold and bend the wire at the plier out to a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to grab a hold where I did on the other loop, and I'm going to turn that wire back towards where I started. Now on this one, again, this one I went ahead and closed because I wanted to show you this technique. Never put your pliers in and pull the thing open. You want to, just like we did on the jump ring, you want to grab a hold and I'm going to twist upward. Then thread on your jump ring and then twist it back downward to close it. And then all you have to do is add your ear hook, and then you'll have the second pair of earrings. Now just like I did on the jump ring in that loop, I'm going to grab a hold of my little loop here on the earring and I'm going to twist it upward, put it on the earring, and then grab a hold and I'm going to twist it back down. And you want to try, and if you don't get it completely closed, rock it back and forth until you get it closed, so that you'll have a nice completed pair of earrings. Just very simple and pretty to wear. Now for a wrapped loop. Wrapped loops are more secure than a plain loop, and people really seem to like a wrapped loop. So I have just a basic 2-inch head pin, and I'm just going to put a little champagne colored bead on the head pin. And I'm going to do this 2 different ways. I'm going to show you my way, and then I'm going to show you the way we teach some of our customers at the store. You start out the wrapped loop just like you do the plain loop. I'm using the thinnest part of my pliers here, and I'm going to bend this wire straight out to a 90-degree angle. Then, depending on how big you want that loop to be, is going to be where you grab them on the pliers. I don't want that loop to be too awfully big. It's just going to be a basic earring, so I'm going to come in just a little ways on the plier, and you can see I've not come too far out from my bend. And this is all going to take practice, okay? You're going to bend it back around itself, and you get what I call a pelican head. This is his head, and this is his beak. His head always has to be sitting straight up and down over the bead for it to look right. I'm going to put the pliers back inside, of that loop, and I'm going to use my flat nose pliers. Now when you use flat nose pliers, you want them to be completely flat on the inside of them. You don't want any kind of ridges or anything like that because it will mar your wire. And I'm going to grab here at the bottom, and it doesn't matter if I go clockwise or counterclockwise. I'm going to grab a hold, and I'm going to wrap the wire around the stem. And each wrap is going to go right below the one I just completed. Now when your wrap meets the bead, and sometimes it only takes just 1 or 2 little wraps to meet the bead, then you're going to use your cutters. And if you notice, my cutters have a concave shape on one side and a flat side for the other. I'm going to take the flat side and I'm going to put it up against the loop that I've got made, so that way I can get good and tight up against where I need to be. And I'm going to snip that excess piece of wire off. Now, you see right here, I have just a little piece of wire sticking out. So I can grab a hold of that piece of wire with my flat nose pliers and just kind of press it and do what I call tucking it in. If your loop looks distorted in any way, you can use your flat nose pliers to kind of straighten it up. Then again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ear hook and do just like I showed you a second ago. I'm going to grab a hold and I'm going to bend the ear hook upward. So I'm twisting upward. I'm going to attach my bead and then grab a hold and twist back down so that now I have the completed earring. So if you want to make another one, well, where's my beads? I lost a bead. Let me find another bead here. Let's see if I got one. Alright, well hang on while I go find another bead, guys. Alright, sorry about that. So now I'm going to show you how I make a wrapped loop that I teach some of our customers here at the store who may have a little bit of a harder time with my technique. So I started out just like I normally would. I hold with the thinnest part of the pliers and I make that bend straight out at the 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to put the pliers back inside just like this. And what I want to do is, again, you're going to place the pliers wherever you want the loop, like however big you want it. So I'm going to put the pliers about right here, and as you can see, my pliers are as close in as I can get them because the bead is basically touching the plier. So I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to bend it back over the top of my round nose pliers. And I'm going to take these pliers out so that you can see. I have a pelican, but as you can see, the poor pelican's head is off to the side and it's not right above the bead. So you can put your pliers back in and then just turn upward so that his head, you can turn it until his head is right above your bead. Mine's still not completely there yet, so I'm going to do one more turn with it. There we go. And then if it gets a little off kilter, you can always take and straighten it back up with your flat nose pliers. Now I'm going to put the pliers back inside of the loop, and then I'm going to grab a hold of the bottom and wrap until I meet the bead. And again, it may only take 2 wraps to meet the bead. Then I'm going to use those pliers, my cutters, make sure I'm using the flat side, put it right up against where I need to cut, and then trim the excess. And as you can see right here, I have just a little piece of wire sticking out, so I'm going to grab a hold and just kind of press that in, and then straighten up the loop. So as you can see, there's not a huge difference between the loop that I showed you and this version of the loop. Like I said, a lot of people just find this version easier, and it's completely up to you. People always want to start out with earrings when they're making jewelry. You know, that's what they want to start out with, but I always tell them they're picking one of the hardest things to start out with. So there is a pair of earrings made with the wrapped loop. So as you can see, there is quite a difference in the plain loop and the wrapped loop. The wrapped loop, one more time, is better, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more secure than a plain loop. Now, I want to show you how to take regular wire that's on a spool and actually make it into sets of beads that you can attach. You can either attach all the, the beads together, or you can make a tassel necklace like I want to show you how to do today. So, to do this, it doesn't take much wire at all to make your own little pin. I'm going to cut off, and I'm going to measure it actually on here so you can see how much I'm cutting off. I don't even measure it anymore because I'm just know what I measure it at. So I'm going to measure it out at about 3 inches, and I'm going to cut a piece. I'm going to make a wrapped loop on one end of this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a hold about an inch down on the pin. And I'm going to bend the wire straight out at that 90-degree angle. Now you can either put your pliers back in and make the head, or I'll do it my way here so that you can. So I'm making my little loop, start my circle, and then I'm going to use the flat nose pliers and I'm going to wrap it. If you can do the wrap all in one go around, that's great. If not, that's fine too. The good thing about doing it this way is that you don't have to do many wraps. And I'm going to go ahead and trim that wire. So that now, essentially, I have a wrapped loop on one end of just my plain wire. And you're going to take a bead. Lord help me. You're going to take a bead. Thread that bead on. And normally I like my loops to be the same direction. So I'm going to grab a hold. Bend the wire straight out to that 90-degree angle. Make my loop whichever way is more convenient for you. And then I'm going to take and do the wrap. And again, I just want to wrap until I meet the bead. Trim. And then tuck it in if it needs to be tucked in. Straighten out your loops if they need to be straightened out whatsoever. And then you have a link. Your link has a loop on each end. So I'm going to start another little wrapped loop on another 3-inch piece of wire, and go ahead and do my loop, and I'm going to put a bead on, and then I'm going to show you how we connect these. It just hit me, before I show you how to connect 2 beads together, I need to show you how to connect a piece of chain to one end of the loop. So I've got this really, really pretty like spiral aluminum chain. I like working with this aluminum because you don't really have to worry about it turning. And also when you use it, it's very lightweight. So I've got a piece of the twisted chain that's about 4.5 inches. And I've taken another piece of wire and I've started my loop. And I'm going to take and thread on the very end link of my last piece of chain. And then I'll grab a hold of the loop. And when I grab a hold of the loop, I'm grabbing straight across it. So you don't see my loop whatsoever because my loop is held inside of my round nose pliers. Then I'm going to do that wrap, just like we normally would. Trim your little excess piece of wire there. So now it's permanently connected to my chain. I'm going to go ahead and thread on my bead. I'm going to start a loop just like I normally would. So when I bring it down from my pelican head and it's in my plier, I'm going to go ahead and bend this wire on back just like this, so that when you look on it head on, this is what you've got. I'm going to thread on the finished loop on one end of my little bead connector. And just like I did with this loop, I'm going to put my pliers across that loop, and then I'm going to wrap. Trim any excess that you might have here. So that now you have two beaded links that are connected to a 4.5 inch piece of chain. So basically what's going to happen, this piece of chain here is going to be the very center, and then these beads are going to be here. So we're going to connect one more bead, and then we'll cut another piece of chain that is approximately 2 inches to just barely like 2 1/8 inches long. And then I want to show you how you'll connect this end to this end. I have all 3 of these beads added, and I've added my chain on that last link. So when I get ready to add these 3 beads, I've started my loop here on my wire like I normally would, and I'm going to grab that link, that last link of chain, and do my wrapped loop. So again, I'm going to hold the loop with the pliers, around those pliers, and I'm going to wrap. And the wire that I'm using, I don't believe I told you today, but the wire I'm using is a 22 gauge wire. So it's pretty easy to and pliable, so you can wrap it with your fingers or however. But I try to tell people not to get used to doing it with their fingers, or they'll never be able to get a good tight wrap what they're working on. So now I have both ends connected to that middle piece of chain. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the brown, a rondelle, and a brown. Then I'm going to have, let me move this down a little bit. I'm going to have another 2 inches of chain and then another set of my 3 light brown. Now then, it's completely up to you how long to make this part. This is the part that goes around the back of the necklace. So I'm just going to try and measure it real quickly here for you. Let's see. I have 15.5 inches of chain. So all of this here is about 15.5 inches. And then you're just going to mirror image the other side. So you'll have your 3 light tan, your brown, your light tan, your brown, and then your 3 light tan. And you don't have a clasp on this because it goes right over your head. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to complete the necklace. Then I want to show you how I did the little tassel here with all the little pieces of chain. So I've got both sides of my necklace completed. I just did a mirror image, as you can see here. And I'm ready to do the tassel for the center of the necklace. I've taken a loop, and I've taken a piece of 22 gauge wire and made a larger size wrapped loop. I didn't complete the wrap though, because then I cut 5 pieces of chain that were approximately 1/2 inch to 2 inches on this first one that I've got completed here. This one I wanted just a little bit longer, so I cut these about 2.5 inches. So all I'm going to do, now that I've got them cut, is I'm going to go ahead and complete the loop. So I'm going to complete wrapping the loop just like I normally would. And then, once you've got that finished, then you're ready to add your bead cap, or your bell, or whatever you want to call it. So, I'm going to take the little bead cap. Now, these are the ones I used for my Kumahimo video a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just going to slide that cap down over my loop that I've got made. And once that loop is made, I'm going to take and find the center of the chain here in the very front. This was that first piece of chain that I cut. So I'm going to find the center. I'm going to start a loop. And you want a smaller size loop. You don't need a big loop for this side. So you're going to start a smaller size loop. And once you find your center there of the necklace, Then you're going to take the length of your wire and thread it through a link of that chain. And then once I've got that complete, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to complete my wrapped loop. So I'm going to take my ends, and this is the hard part because you've got all this chain, so you're just going to kind of hold your hands up, your finger to hold the chain up. You can take it and just wrap it right around the stem here, so that once you've got that and you trim that little end piece, now you have your tassel added to your necklace. So as you can see, this one is my little bit of the longer tassel, and then that gives you an idea of what the shorter one would look like. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Must Know Monday video and that you learned how to make a plain loop and a wrapped loop. Be sure to go to our Facebook page and look for the picture of the clear earrings that I made in the beginning. Comment on the photo telling me something that you might have learned in this video or something that you enjoyed from the video, and 2 lucky winners are going to win the beads and the findings needed to make those clear earrings. Also, we do have kits available on our website and in store for the really pretty gold, champagne, and smoked topaz necklace that I showed you at the end. And that kit does contain a written pattern and everything that you need in it to complete the necklace. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure and come back next Monday when I'm going to show you and talk to you the difference between jump rings and split rings. Bye-bye.